Yeah, it is funny for me to say it, isn't it?
Yeah, granddaughters.
Yeah, I'm not that much older than you, but here I got granddaughters. And boy, they can drive you crazy, man. They just drive you crazy.
I know. All right. Okay, how are we? Are we good over there? Good.
I'm good.
Granddaughters all taken care of and everything, Charlie.
Oh yeah, they're put in their cages for at least a little bit. They're being. I gave them a couple of gallons of ice cream. That should.
Yeah.
You know,
okay. Good.
Yeah.
All right. So, Charlie, you what the hell's going on in Eugene?
Well, you were a track guy, and so you probably.
Yeah, I ran the mile, 2 mile.
Yeah.
And the 880 hurdles.
Really?
Yeah, the 880
hurdles. The 880 hurdles? I didn't even know they had such a thing.
Yeah, they had the 110, the 220, and the 880 was like a half mile. Yeah.
That's crazy, and it's bad enough, but then you have to jump over something.
Oh yeah, it was awesome, man.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you've heard of Steve Prefontaine, the very famous track runner here at University of Oregon. It was killed in a car wreck sometime in the 70s. And he ran at a place called Hayward Field. It was very famous. So now they're knocking it down.
Oh.
They're going to knock it down.
Really?
And it's gotten a lot of people outraged. So that's one of the things that's going on up here. But in keeping with the idea of sports, we're going to be having the North American Blockchain and Sports Conference down in L.A. in August this year.
Hold on one second. Let me bring that up. NASBC.co. It's a good plug for the event there.
Yeah.
Where'd my mouse go? There we go, web. Okay, so we're at 224 days out. We had to push this off until February.
February.
Yeah, it's in February now, February 4th, 5th, and 6th. We just had a few issues with the venue and tickets and some other stuff, but we're muddling through it. Here's all the information. I know you can't see it from where you are, but if you were on the web, you'd see it. So we have the cocktail reception on the 4th, and then the 5th and 6th would be regular sessions. We'll have athletes. We'll have speakers. We'll have some great speakers there.
Yeah, and they're going to have something to speak about, and it's specifically what I'm bringing up right now. We talked about this time and again, that if blockchain is going to become more than just a novelty, it's going to have to solve problems, real-world problems. And one of the biggest real-world problems it's going to have to figure out or solve is what's happening with college sports today.
Yeah.
College athletics are in a huge, huge hole. And if, if blockchain is going to move out of the novelty and into the reality, this is, I think, in my opinion, where it's going to be one of the most efficacious or one of the most effective areas. Now, we talked about how blockchain is funding films right now. I mean, there are a lot more films being funded. Well, if it's possible to fund and get movies made with blockchain, I'm saying that there's a possibility that athletic departments can start to use blockchain as a way of funding their crisis. And I'm telling you right now, and I gave you a bunch of references that our listeners and viewers can go to and start reading for themselves.
Yeah.
And one of them was...
Okay, let's go back to the card. Okay, so we're going to start from the top one, right?
Yep.
The $10 billion sports tab, $10 billion sports tab.
Yep.
Yeah.
How colleges are finally, are funding the arms race, and this is from the Chronicle of Higher Education. And I would suggest to everybody going to this well, I mean, I'm asking everybody to go to all of our sources, but what it's telling you is in very stark terms, just exactly how much your college sports cost. At least $10 billion a year goes to college sports to fund it, to get it going, to get it out on the playing field or on the basketball court or on a baseball diamond. This is what it's costing and what it's effectively going to the situation that's going to be needed, where blockchain can come in. I honestly think that blockchain can start be utilized to fund this. I don't think $10 billion is a whole lot when you compare the market cap for some of the cryptocurrencies that are running around out there.
Yeah.
So I think I'm not going to claim that we can fund or blockchain can fund every part of this, this cost. But I think there's some universities that are going to have to. They're not going to have a choice, Dean. They're simply not going to have any other option because all the other options that are available are going away.
Yeah, like you talk about the donors, the sponsors, are people like Nike or companies like Nike, are they allowed to give money to these programs?
They can give product. I mean, they'll comp a team the products that they use.
Yeah.
I don't think
The
that
shirts
they can give
and
it.
shoes and stuff like that,
Yeah.
right?
But it's the guys like the individuals that own the companies or the major functionaries of Nike, which is Phil Knight, of course. He's been giving the University of Oregon and other universities as well quite a lot of money. But they're not triple trillionaires. They may be billionaires, but they're not trillionaires. In order for them to be able to fund and just come out of big donors' pockets, they have to be a whole hell of a lot richer than what they are now. Because the deficits and the cost of putting out an athletic football or a competitive football team are so expensive that they would almost have to start giving away and making a whole hell of a lot more money to be able to fund this. This is how serious the situation is. I mean, $10 billion. I mean, I think the University of Oregon here, I can't say. I'm gonna back up, but it's hundreds of millions of dollars. What it costs to run their athletic department, and I don't think Phil Knight has all that much money to be able to fund it fully. So they're going to have to look beyond the donors. They're going to have to look beyond just the big money guys. After all, these are still public universities in many cases, and you still have to have some measure of public oversight of these things. Otherwise, you just might as well privatize the entire athletic department, and you're not going to be able to do that. Mainly because of the fact that if you want to build a new football stadium, you got to go to the public to be able to get the bonding authority. Phil Knight can't just underwrite the building of a new, as an example, of a football stadium. He can't do that all by himself. So there has to be some public control of some kind. But my point is that you're running out of money, Dean. The public and the states are going bankrupt in some cases or are in very serious financial trouble. And even if that's the case, the universities themselves, their academic side, and I'll get to that in a little while, are in such serious situation. I mean, Phil Knight, like I said, is a big donor here to the University of Oregon.
Yeah.
And last year, the University of Oregon had to lay off 75 professors. They didn't have the money to pay for... 75 professors. Well, Phil Knight can't help to fund the entire athletic or the entire, both the academic and the athletic side. The academic side is being, in many cases, compromised to keep funding this. And this leads me to my second point, or my second reference. And I really urge everybody to read this. If they want a real good thumbnail synopsis of where college sports is at, or the history of college sports and where it's at now, please read the Brookings Institution's report, How College Sports Lost Its Way. It's a remarkable thing. You're from Texas, so Texas, it's huge. Well, anyway, what the Brookings Institute, and I knew before this as well, the almost from the inception, college sports has never been an amateur endeavor. Never. There's always been some measure of money making and profiteering with college sports.
Yeah.
And this is what these guys show. From the advent of the time that you started having professional or full-time college football coaches, that was pretty much the time when all college athletics, or most, when college football specifically, became a semi-pro endeavor. Are you familiar with George Gipp at Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, back in the day, there was something called ghost players. These were guys that weren't students. They basically played football for, let's say, 4 or 5 years, whatever their eligibility ran out, changed their names and their identity, and went to go play at another college. In some cases, yeah.
No way.
I'm dead serious. That's what they're called. They were called the ghost players.
Wow.
And so sometimes they would wear disguises. Sometimes they would do things to mask their identity. And in many cases, these guys kept going on until they were in their 30s, just changed their names and played for other teams and kept going.
Well, now,
Well,
what was the benefit of that?
Well, because you were getting really good football players. You were getting professional athletes to go play for your colleges.
Okay, Okay,
So
I get it.
So you would have these competitive teams premised on pro athletes, men that had nothing to do with college. They weren't students.
How were they getting paid?
Well,
Or were they
the
getting paid?
Oh, hell yeah, they were getting paid. The same way they're getting paid now. And I mean, I'm going to leave it at that. Somebody would slip them a few $100 here, a few $100 there.
Oh, okay.
Back in the day, it's not a bad way to make a living. You could just one of the schools that did this, and I'm talking about the golden age of sports. Yeah, our college football. That's like between the 20s and the 30s.
Okay.
So they were getting paid well enough. University of Pittsburgh was getting paid well enough to run this kind of scam. The players, they could get married. They could actually start families. If you want to reference, one of the best books about this is called Shake Down the Thunder. And it just lays out from the very beginning how these colleges were using their sports as a way of marketing and making money. Now, remember something. We were talking about University of California, Berkeley, their stadium that's going to, that terrible situation they financed a stadium. It's going to take 100 years to pay it off. Remember our last podcast, we talked about that. Well, they built that stadium in 1923. If you take a look at a lot of the iconic stadiums in American football,
wow,
like Ohio, they were all built around the 1920s or 30s. And baby, you got to pay that debt. You gotta, if you take out a bond and you borrowed money, you got to pay for the stadium. And as then as now, the stadium's only open maybe 6 times, 7 times a year. You're going to have to figure out a way of making a lot of money. So the way you do that is by capitalizing on the football season. You got to get a team out there that's really competitive. You got to, and that goes back to Notre Dame and George Gipp. George Gipp was one of those ghost players. There's almost no record of him ever attending any classes at Notre Dame. And Notre Dame, and this is not to slam Notre Dame. I'm just giving an example that a lot of people, may understand because they know George Gipp and Notre Dame. If it had not been for Newt Rockne, who was became a professional coach. I mean, his job, he didn't teach. All his job was to teach or to coach the football team. And guys like, George Gipp, Notre Dame would still be the small little Catholic university up in northern Indiana. They absolutely needed all the promotion they could get from guys like Gipp and Rockne and all these other, the Four Horsemen. They needed that in order to get the school to grow. It's got a huge endowment now. It's probably close to $10 billion.
Wow.
All premised on football. Now, prior to that, Notre Dame started playing football, in the 1880s or 1890s? They didn't have a professional coach. They had maybe a former player or one of the players themselves that would coach the team. It was never, ever meant to be anything other than, at the very beginning, to be nothing more than just a way of making a a bunch of kids blowing off steam and, getting together and playing football.
Yeah.
But that changed around the time they started building these huge stadiums and hiring these full-time coaches. And that's what this Brookings Institute article talks about. And one of the more important things is on page 17. They're talking about how this arms race is continuing and how it's going to effectively compromise the academics of the university. I'm quoting from the article. In the future, the cost to compete at the highest levels will likely be subsidized increasingly by student fees or institutional operating expenses. So what now that means is that the football programs, the athletic programs, cannot pay for themselves. They're going to have to start stealing more money, more tuition money, more fees, whatever it takes to keep those universities or those athletic programs going.
Wow.
And they gave some really very good data that, and if that's the case, if all this is the case, again, like I've told you before, where are they going to find the money? They're going to have to find some very novel or unique ways of funding this situation.
Yeah.
Because, and that's where blockchain comes in. And I know we talked to Sunil Bardwaj from Global Talent
Yeah.
and Kyle Forkey, and these are the guys who help, anybody who wants to try and fund their, specifically Sunil. He helps to fund athletes and sports teams through blockchain transactions, through blockchain peer-to-peer financing.
Yeah.
And so that, pardon me, that's why I think we need to get Sunil to talk about this, because he's already on top of it. I mean, he's not the only one, of course, but he's already seen the situation. He's seen the future, and he set up Global Talent in order to be able to finance this. But let me give you some of the data that Brookings Institution came up with. We're divided. There's something called the College Football Championship Subdivision. Those are for the smaller schools, like Illinois State, Cornell, University of Delaware. And then there's the other division, the big boy division, Football Bowl Subdivision. And those are the big boys, And within that group is called the P5, the Power 5 conferences. Those are the elite college teams that you see where most of the pros come from. And those are the P5 are the Power 5 conferences. That's the Pac-10, the Big 10, or the Pac-12, excuse me, the Pac-12, the Big 10, the Big 12, which is where Texas Tech and your school neck of the woods.
Red Raiders.
Yeah, the SEC and the ACC. Those are what comprise the Power 5. So just to give people an idea, because I know a lot of our listeners are foreign-born, may not understand this. So they're within college football or college athletics, we have these different gradations. The very big ones, the biggest power, the most powerful college athletic programs are found in the football's Bowl Subdivision, the FBS, the smaller ones, football champions, the FCS, and then comes Division III. Okay, so just to give you a background, there are 346 Division I football teams, the highest active members. There's 307 D2 and 439 D3. So that's about 1,092 universities that are active in the NC2A, which is the governing body of college athletics.
Yeah.
In Division I, only 24 out of the 346, or 19% of the football of the FBS schools, the biggest schools, made a profit. Only 19%.
Oh my God.
And it's even worse for the FCS, the smaller schools. None of them made a profit. So they're all running deficits.
Wow.
So the places like Illinois State, like I was telling you, the Cornells at Illinois States of the world, probably the Nevada, Las Vegas, all those schools, none of them are making any money on their athletic programs. So that's why I'm saying, if blockchain is going to be efficacious, they got to go to at least to these schools to begin with, because they're not making a penny on their athletic. And I want people to understand that. For as big as what you see all of these teams on TV, and you think, boy, they're just running in the money. No, they're not. You see these basketball programs. No, they're not. and that's, that's what I'm trying to tell people, that, and how I think we should approach it. And I'm glad we have a little bit more time, because I think we should be approaching some of these athletic departments and saying, hey, listen, guys, we can see the future, and the future is you don't have a future. Yeah. So if you don't do something now, then I'm not sure how you're even going to survive as an athletic department. And that leads me to my second, or my other point, and this is a really good source. Colleges are spending way too much on athletic programs, but students and athletes rarely benefit. And
who's benefiting?
Who's benefiting are the coaches, whenever you build, let me back up a little bit. Whenever you build a stadium or some big huge facility to help facilitate athletics, who builds that? The contractors and Wall Street that goes out and finances that. So, like I said before, like for instance with University of California, Berkeley, they borrowed nearly $450 million for that build out of that
Wow.
stadium. So the contractors, whoever get the contracts or the go ahead to do that rebuild, and Wall Street, who underwrote and then invest in those bonds, they're the ones who are making a lot of money. They're the people, just follow the money. And I'm not sitting here trying to, slam Wall Street or contractors. I'm saying that's just the way the money system works. So the people who are making the most money or who are getting the biggest benefit aren't the students, or certainly not the athletes. Because most of them will not turn pro. Most of them just they're not going to go pro. So that's where the money flows. And people like Nike, who use their athletic gear as a really good promotional tool and advertising tool, they benefit as well.
Yeah.
So, but the academics are being compromised. That's the thing that is so problematic, and that leads me to my other reference, my fifth reference, which was this is from the title is "Has Spending Become Out of Control for NCAA athletic departments?" And why that's important is because it tells you the cost of actually running a football team or an athletic department, a big time sports program.
Yeah.
In 2004, just the cost of travel, tuition, and other costs of being able to put the teams together went from 2.6 to 4.4 billion dollars. And that's just for Power 5 schools. That's for the biggest, most powerful universities. So you can see right there that in just less than 10 years, it nearly doubled to put these teams out, to be able to compete and travel and do the things that you need to do to put a football team together or an athletic team together. But here's the kicker. In 2016, attendance and ticket sales fell, for all sporting programs, for athletic, for college games. That's the sixth straight year that that college attendance, sports attendance has fallen. 6 straight years. And so they're not going to be getting the money necessarily from ticket sales anymore. People are not going at the same rates to these games that they did before. It's just too expensive. I mean, when was the last time you went to a college football game?
When I was in high school. That was the last time I went to a college game.
So that's been about 20 years ago.
30 years ago.
Whatever it was, 20, 30 years ago. I don't keep up with that. But that's the point.
Yeah, it was a Texas Tech game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cheap and pretty affordable, I'm sure.
Oh, I went with the school, so I didn't pay a dime. So, yeah, the schools
well,
are just over
now
there.
Would be.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I've never been to a USC game or been to a UCLA game. I'm here in Orange County. We don't have any college football teams over here, but the closest one would be UCLA or USC.
USC, yeah. Well, the cost of attending now it's not going to be the way it was 30 years ago, where you could just go for free or just pay a nominal cost. That's all gone. So that's why and it's in fact hitting a lot of universities that you would think would always be sold out. Alabama, I remember a couple of years ago, Coach Saban getting really upset because not enough people were in the stands. Nick Saban at University of Alabama, maybe the most preeminent college football program in the country,
wow.
had their head coach sitting there saying, "Hey, how come nobody's showing up to the games? How come you're not sticking around?" Well, for one thing, it costs too much, and there are other ways of being able to,
Yeah, you go to a bar and you have a $3 drink instead of a $15 drink, and you get to watch the game for free.
Yeah,
that's why.
But you know what? You can watch the game for free, but guess what? The subscribers to ESPN have fallen off the table. So even the cost of a subscription to ESPN is getting to be too much for most people. And this is where the dilemma really begins to manifest itself. And that's why I want people to read this article as well. because it points out that ESPN paid 470. They put together a contract with.
Which one are you on here?
It should be number 5. Has spending become out of control for NC2A?
Oh, okay, we're still on that one. Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, that's the same one.
All right.
So I'm referencing that, and it said ESPN is paying $470 million per year for 12 seasons to air the college football playoffs. So those are the big, all those games that you watch, the main, the main bowls that you are taking a look at. They're paying $470 million.
They pay the colleges that.
Yep.
Oh my God.
They pay the conference, not the colleges. Well, the colleges get the money. They pay the conferences for the broadcast rights.
Wow.
But the number of subscribers. Now they did this I think in 2014. They put together this contract. But the problem is this, Dean. In 2011, the number of ESPN subscribers peaked. I think that was about 100 million people was their top number of subscribers in 2011. That number has fallen by 12 million. And the trends are continuing that fewer people are going to be subscribing to ESPN. So this is why, when we talked to Eamon Donlan, who worked for ESPN for years, he said, look, and he talked about the fact that, they're laying people off at ESPN because they put together this situation. They have these huge costs for broadcasting rights, but the subscribership is going down. And what they did was they just increased the cost of subscriptions. But people are finally saying, you know what? Let me back up. This is something really interesting. You're paying the same amount of money to subscribe to ESPN all throughout the year, and there's like a golden time for sports, because like in the fall you have football, both college and pro. You have baseball because of the the World Series and the playoffs, and basketball begins at that time as well. So at that time, you may want to pay extra for a subscription because look at all the stuff that you're able to watch.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. But in the summer, that kind of goes away. And I remember a few years ago, because I don't subscribe to ESPN, so I was at a sports bar in the summer, and I was watching them broadcast remember Nathan's hot dog eating contest?
Oh yeah.
They were broadcasting Nathan's hot dog eating contest.
Dude, I know. Yesterday I was watching, that game Toss Across with the bean bags that you throw into a little hole. Yeah. I was watching that I went to a sports bar yesterday. I was like, are you kidding me? They were showing a Toss Across, freaking pro league Toss Across on ESP freaking N.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, they're showing Toss Across.
I keep forgetting. I forget to go to my thing. Toss Across. Yeah, I got to get my FaceTime on here too. Sorry, you don't see that, Charlie, but I think it's some FaceTime. Sorry, go back to you.
Sure. All right. Believe me, nobody needs time with our faces.
I
man.
know.
We're just all beat up. But anyway.
Toss Across. Freaking
Toss Across.
Oh my God.
Hot dog eating contest.
Yes, that's the things that Deep America wants to watch.
Nobody wants to watch that. But the point
God.
is that in the summer you don't have that kind of programming that you have at other times of the year. But I'm still paying the same amount of money to watch college football, pro football, whatever it is, as I am for Toss Across and fat guys eating hot dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, why am I going to pay that same amount of money?
No.
So, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So ESPN is losing money, and if they're losing money, then the money for broadcast rights is going to go down. I mean, they already know that they're not going to be able to pay more for this because, first of all, but fewer people are going to the games, and there are not that many teams that have the capacity to put out really competitive teams. Do I really want to see Iowa State play, North Dakota? Do I really want to see Texas Tech, Oklahoma State? I mean, I may if I'm an alum, and maybe the teams are halfway decent. But does anybody, let's say, in Philadelphia or Newport Beach really care that much about those games?
No, they're not.
So they become regional games. And so why would I pay extra to watch that? There's just so many games that are being broadcast that have no interest, that I have no interest in. Hell, I have hardly any interest in college sports anymore, anyway, myself. But do you honestly think, and you and I are here in the Pac-12, in Pac-12 country, the West Coast. Do you care if Oregon State plays Arizona State?
Not at all.
Not at all. Neither do I. And I'm an alum and I went to Oregon State, and I don't care. So that's basically what's happening. I think they oversaturated the market. There's just too many games, and you lost interest because not everything can be very good.
Yeah.
And now, so I want to give you some real world examples now. So let's go to number 6.
Okay. All right. Did I lose you, Charlie? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We lost Charlie. Charlie, you there? Hello, hello?
You there?
I can barely hear you now. Hey, fix your phone. I barely see the top of your head now. Angle it down. So no headroom. Okay, angle it down to just a skosh more. Angle it down just a skosh more.
Hold on.
There, perfect. Yeah,
all right.
There we go. Yeah, good. Yeah.
Yeah, sponsors are going to love this.
Professional as ESPN here. Yeah.
Yeah, they got better looking women. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah.
But anyway, what I was saying is that this is the reality, folks. And let me just, Dean and I have talked about this several different times about universities and how their athletic departments are falling apart. We went into it about University of California, Berkeley, and how they're absolutely screwed because of the stupid, stadium deal that they made, financing deal to refurbish their stadium. And we talked about Washington State. And you couldn't believe that they were so much in the hole, their athletic department. You said, how in the world can they be like $70 million in the hole? Wouldn't they figure something out at like $4 or $5 million?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Once you get past, you're in the double digits of deficit. You're double digits in deficit in the millions. Double digits in millions. Stop digging the freaking hole. Let's figure a way to get out of this.
Well, what it reminds me of? You've heard about these 1,200-pound guys that, they have to knock down the house to get them out of the house. They're so fat that they outgrew their house.
Yep.
It's sort of like when you're at 600-700 pounds, don't you think maybe I should,
try
start
yogurt.
thinking about nutrition? Yeah, try yogurt.
Try
maybe,
some
go
freaking yogurt.
for a walk. Change my dietary plans. Something.
Don't eat the whole bucket at Kentucky Fried Chicken. Just leave a few pieces for Ma and the kids.
Yeah. No. I'm going to gain another 500 pounds. Then I'm going to think about it. That's the sort of thing that's going on here.
Yeah.
And here's that reference because I knew I had to bring this up. I knew that if you doubted it, then everybody else or a lot of other people would too. Washington State Athletic Department projects $67 million hole. 67. That's their projection. And the fact is that they had to do an audit, and they showed that at Washington State that their athletic department was doing a horrible job keeping track of costs. So this is just a projection. This is just an estimate. It's going to be far, far worse. What their audit indicated, that they weren't selling as many tickets as they claimed. So the attendance was down. And, sorry, where are they going to be able to make this deficit up? They're not. There's no way that they can make it. This is Washington State. It's a decent school, but it's a regional school up in Pullman, Washington. Where are they going to find the money to fill a $70 million plus deficit in just their athletic department? This is not the school. This is just the athletic department. What are you going to do?
Amazing.
Say, hey, let's just close the engineering, because an engineering department, because the athletic department is not any different than the academic departments. They're supposed to be the same. They're supposed to be, considered the same thing.
That doesn't make any sense. So where does all this tuition? Because tuitions keep going up.
Yeah.
Their tuitions keep going up. I'm sure the teachers aren't making a whole hell of a lot of money. I see the coaches are making upwards of over $1 million, most of them, at these big schools. So,
okay,
there's something going on.
I'll give you an answer. It goes to administrative overhead, and it goes to the to all the building projects that you have going on all these campuses. Remember how we talked about a long time ago? And you live down in Orange County, so you're around a lot of universities, and community colleges.
UCI, yeah.
Yeah, UCI, Long Beach, Fullerton. I challenged you, and I challenged you to go take a look at how many building projects are taking place on those campuses. And they're everywhere. They never stop. And we're going to get to it a little later. They never, ever stop. There are literally hundreds of millions of dollars in debt going to build student rec centers, sporting facilities, you name it, they're building it. Well, your tuition is pledged to pay for that's your student loans are the collateral for all of those building projects. The buildings themselves are not the collateral, because the bondholder can be, a Japanese insurance company or a Swiss bank. What the hell do they want with a student rec center? What do they want with a, they don't need it. They want the money.
Yeah.
They want the loans. And the loans are guaranteed by the federal government. So if you take out a loan from the federal government, you got to pay it back. You don't have any option of defaulting on those loans. So that's the money flow that goes to pay for all this. That's where your tuition keeps going up, because you have to keep, taking on more debt, and more of that debt is used to pay off these bonds.
Yeah.
That's where it's going, baby. It's not going into the departments. It's not going into the academics. The academics continues to fall, or the quality of the academics. Like I said, up here at Oregon, there's never a stop to the building projects that go on here at the University of Oregon. But last year, they laid off 75 professors. Oregon is at the bottom, according to the Wall Street Journal, at the very bottom, academically, of the Pac-12. So what good? So it's obviously not going into the classroom.
No.
Okay, and I'm going to get to that, because I'm going to point out two other schools before we get to what's happening at Oklahoma. Okay, so I picked up a school, and these are just representative folks. These are by no means the only ones, but these are representative of the situation and how dire the finances are at athletic departments and at universities in general. The ones I'm picking out are just ones that Dean and I are familiar with. And Dean lived a little bit in New Mexico.
I was born there.
Yeah, he is.
Born in New Mexico, on Silver City, and Western New Mexico University was where my dad was teaching up until just a couple of years ago. He was doing in the fine arts department, so very familiar with that school. Yeah.
Well, your flagship is the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, athletics mess threatens UNM.
Yeah.
So the University of New Mexico at this point in time, this is according to the Albuquerque Journal, is in very serious trouble. So the flagship of New Mexico, the state of New Mexico, UNM, is probably not going to be able to survive much longer in its present situation, in its present configuration. The school forced not a tuition, but a fee increase on the students. The students, for the most part, said, no, we don't want to pay any more fees. And the reason they wanted the administrators wanted to increase the fees was because they wanted to make the football team more competitive. So they needed to have more money go into coaching, to facilities, whatever it needed to get the Lobos to be competitive on a national scale, on a national scope. Well, it hasn't worked, but the fees keep increasing, and the cost to put out a football team or an athletic program at New Mexico keeps skyrocketing because of the fact that they want to be competitive. New Mexico and New Mexico State have never been competitive, at least not in football, ever.
No.
And the idea that they need to spend the kind of money and drag it away from the academic side makes absolutely no sense, unless you are administrators at these universities who think if we continue to, increase the stature of our football team, we're going to get more out-of-state students. So the guys who go to New Mexico, the people who live in New Mexico, can't attend their universities because they can't afford to go. But the universities are increasing the cost in the idea that they can lure out-of-state students to come there. This is the most crazy, ridiculous. I mean, I'm flabbergasted, but that's really what it is. And that's not just New Mexico. All these universities are doing the same thing. They're trying to poach kids from out of state because the out of state kids pay like 3 or 4 times more in tuition than the in-state schools. They'll take out loans, and those loans are going to then be used as collateral for all the building projects. That's the thinking. It's perverse because the students and the taxpayers of New Mexico, for instance, can't even attend their own schools. It's because we have this mania with athletics, that athletics is somehow, sports is going to somehow save these universities.
Yeah.
Well, they're not. And the one university that I'm going to bring up is Louisville, University of Louisville. And I'm not sure if you've heard about it, but folks, if you want to know the people who run, the quality of the people who run your schools and your universities and your athletic departments, just read about Louisville.
A devastating fall from grace. Nearly every corner of Louisville campus in crisis.
Every bit of it. Now, Louisville, yeah, because they joined the ACC, Atlantic Coast Conference, about a few years ago. So they figured, okay, this is going to be our chance to shine athletically, at least. And if with that, it's going to, increase our stature. But you know what? When you join a P5 conference, when you jump into that Shark Tank, you're going to have to pay a whole lot more money. That's exactly what Louisville started to do, and they became corrupt. Their basketball program, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. They hired hookers to lure, basketball recruits. It's an absolute mess. And this is Louisville. This is some local regional school that decided that they had to become some sort of power player in college sports, and they pretty much spent anything they could to increase the football stature, because they not only did they have a good basketball team, they had they were able to develop a pretty good football team as well, which is not easy to do. But at what cost? The cost of the academics. Louisville. Again, it's beyond my capacity to try and explain it, folks. You got to read it for yourself. But Louisville, I'm not sure it's going to survive much longer. As an institution, not just as the athletic department, but as an institution, their deficits were incredible. They were just paying out. I mean, if they're willing to go out and create a whorehouse on the campus or wherever they had it, funded by the university to lure basketball recruits, I think it tells you the quality of the thinking and the people that run that particular university. Yeah. Now, this might be
they're just thinking outside the box, man. They're trying to be creative with their limited.
Okay, well, if they're so creative, why don't they look into blockchain? This is what it all comes down.
Well, probably because they're a bunch of idiots. They don't know anything about it. They haven't been exposed to it, and they're listening to the tabloids of it's just a scam and it's a sham and it's a Ponzi scheme. So.
Well, that's my point. That's what they're listening to. But, that's the whole point that I bring up with blockchain or with cryptocurrencies. It's more than just, I know for most people, they just take a look at the, Bitcoin futures, and they take a look at the price and the rise and all of that, and they say, well, that's all it is. But it's not. It's more than that. Blockchain is also a peer-to-peer capacity to finance finance endeavors, like, as we said, movie making.
Yeah.
Well, this might be the way to do it, to fund athletic departments. In my opinion, and somebody can tell me if I'm wrong, but it's a more honest way. You have to go out and tell people, look, I think we have a future with this athletic department. Will you be willing to fund it directly through our blockchain process? And they can bypass all the big donors, which are probably going to start dwindling away. They can start to they can stop looking at ESPN, which is probably not, or any of the networks that pay that pay for broadcasting rights, because they're probably going to start saying, we're not going to pay for more. Instead, you go to the people themselves who have an interest in your athletic program, in your school, alumni, just people who live in the region. Anybody who would have an interest in your school or your athletic department going forward might look at blockchain as a real way of working this.
Yeah.
And that's why I bring this all up. You and I have been talking about this for a long time, that blockchain, for it to become really efficacious, it has to solve real world problems. And, you interview a lot of people who talk about blockchain can be used to, get your love life going, to fund cargo.
Yeah.
I mean, there's any number of different things that blockchain has been used to get financing in, for various endeavors, for various entrepreneurial, entrepreneurs. Well, I'm saying that our conference should be addressing the issues that are taking place in college sports right now.
Yeah.
And we got people who probably can help athletic departments and universities going forward. And I'm telling you, it's going to affect the very biggest guys too. And that's the last, or one of the last, or the second to the last reference that I have. What will Sooner athletics in age of belt tightening look like in the future? Now, why do I bring this up? Oklahoma actually runs a profit. Their athletic department, gives back. If I remember correctly, gives back money to the university. They're that rich. They're that
wow.
well run. They make money. They do make money, but the university itself, the academic side, is in huge trouble. They have $1 billion. They have $1 billion in debt for building projects that they can't pay. Their current president, their new president, is a guy called James Galogly, if I'm saying that correctly. Just the other day, he said, look, and this is what the article is talking about. He's saying, look, at this point, we may have a university that's only an athletic department, and the academic side is gone. We can't do this. We can't separate the two. We're running out of money. We can't keep asking students. He said, we're going to put a freeze on tuition hikes. That's it. No more tuition hikes. We can't keep asking students to pay for this.
No,
anymore.
it's not their fault that
it's not their
the
fault.
administration didn't know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah. Did you really need to go into debt for one university, $1 billion in debt?
How is that possible?
Because nobody was there to, I know. I mean,
how is that possible? Isn't there governing bodies that would step in at one point or another and look at the books of this thing? It doesn't take I mean, I could look at it and go, hey man, we're at triple digits now. Let's pump the brakes on this. Let's get the hookers out of here.
Okay. Yeah, get the hookers out of here.
Yeah.
Do we really need a fake, a climbing wall so that the students can have a fuller college experience? Look, you got a daughter who's 16 now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. She's going to probably be looking at college pretty soon. And you're going to be helping her go determine which college to go to.
Yeah.
Do you care? Does she care if the university, or is she going to pay extra for sushi availability at the chow hall?
No, she's not going to do that.
No, she's not.
She's in film and TV just like I am, and so she's going to want to know where, probably who has the best cameras. That's her thought of thinking is not who has the best teachers, but who has the best cameras. She thinks a better camera makes a better photographer, which we all know does not. So it's the person behind it, or the intelligence. So she needs to look at those kinds of things. So.
Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is because of the fact you just asked the question: who's looking at the books? Why are you spending $1 billion on all these building projects? Well, the university administrators, because they've told me. I'll tell you what they told me. They said, "Look, we need all of these fancy buildings. We need the swimming pools and the water concourses and the fake climbing walls and sushi availability and granite counters in the dorms, because that's what the students demand. They need this stuff in order for us to keep bringing students onto our campus."
Well, that goes back to another question. If they want sushi things, are they providing the sushi for free, or are these students still paying for that sushi?
No. They're going to pay for the sushi.
See,
and they're going to have to pay for the...
if their students are paying for these amenities, they're paying out of their pocket for the amenities. It's not part of their tuition. They're paying out of their pocket for the amenities. That still doesn't make sense.
Well, no, the whole point is that the administrators are saying that our students are so finicky and so particular that they'll go to a school that has, sushi
Oh,
availability.
okay. I'm
that
getting it. I'm
has
getting it. Yeah,
fancy
I
camp,
understand.
fancy facilities.
But the kids aren't
that-
utilizing all of those. They're not paying as much as they thought they were going to be paying to do all these cool things. Like the kids, they're still broke students. They're not going to go spend $40 on sushi when they can have a 10-cent top ramen.
Well, that's exactly right. But what they're claiming, what the administrators are claiming, is that that's the only way we can draw students here. The only way we can draw more and more students to our campuses is by having all these fancy things and having really if you take a look at the student rec centers, the recreational facilities for students, these things are spas. They've got hot tubs, they've got climbing walls, they got spinning classes. You take a look at the dorms that these kids have now. It's like I said, they'll have granite counters. It's like top of the line. But all of that goes into the cost of you have to build these things. I was going to say something else, but you have to build these things. So you have to go into debt.
Yeah.
I mean, or the schools have to go into debt. They have to issue bonds. Well, who's going to pay for that except the students? The students are going to pay for it in two ways. They're going to pay for it by increased tuition, more loans, and the academics falling apart. So that brings me to my final point, and this is where it all leads to. A Harvard Business School professor said that within the next 10 or 15 years, half of universities are going to be bankrupt.
Really?
Half of universities. This is it's from CNBC. And this is Harvard. This is a Harvard Business School professor. Now, in the United States, there's something like 4,700 2-year and 4-year universities, community colleges, and 4-year institutions. He's saying that and there's about 3,000, 3,500, 3,700 2-year or 4-year universities. What this guy is saying is that within the next decade, less than a generation from now, you're going to have half of them going bankrupt. So, and I believe it, because we just went through a litany of all these schools that are in big, huge trouble and that may not be able to make it. And certainly these are not the only ones. And he's saying that half of them will just not, they may still exist, but they're going to be in default. They can't keep this stuff up. And if that's the case, then the old ways of doing things, of financing schools and universities and athletic departments, are finished. I mean, they failed.
Amazing.
And if this guy is honest and not honest, but is right, we're seeing a crisis of monumental, just a biblical crisis with the universities. Well, listen, folks, we're holding this conference in February, later this year. If you are an athletic director or you are anything to do with college athletics or even colleges, I think you should attend this conference.
Yes.
Because I don't think you don't have any other options. You're not going to be you can't keep raising tuition like the new president of Oklahoma has said, look, we can't just keep raising tuition anymore. We just can't say, okay, well, the only option we have is just jacking up the cost. We can't do this to these students
No,
anymore.
eventually they're going to get to a point where kids, it's going to cost more to go to college than their parents make. So that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
And it's just dumbing down America. Whenever the kids can't go to school, they can't afford a school, they're just dumbing down America. They really are. Yeah.
So you're going to have to make your, like the president of Oklahoma has said, we have to make some decisions now. We've reached the crisis. We can't kick the can further down the road. You've left me with $1 billion worth of debt that I can't pay. I have to be able to save the academic side, because that's really what University of Oklahoma is about. It's about the academics. It's not about just the athletic department. So I have to do something. And he's basically saying we have to tone down athletics in some way. And I mean, to think that most people, alumni and Sooner fans, wouldn't go for that. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are the fans of this university and their athletic department are saying, that's impossible. You can't touch our athletic department. You can't touch our football team. So what choice have they got? You have this fanatic, fan base, this almost deranged fan base in a lot of these universities that aren't going to listen to reason. And that's why I think this, and this is one of the reasons this Harvard business professor stated, half your universities, half the U.S. colleges will be bankrupt within the next 10 years. Because people cannot come to terms with this in many cases. They just simply will not accept it. Well, it doesn't matter what you want. The reality is you got to pay your bills. And if people aren't coming to your games and students are no longer attending because they just can't afford it, you're going to be bankrupt.
Yeah, doesn't it make more sense to bring down the price of tickets and things like that so that more people come to the game? They're going to buy, instead of a $15 hot dog, make it a $7 hot dog. You're going to sell 10 more hot dogs than you were. It just doesn't make sense. So you got to bring prices down somewhere so that people can start enjoying these things again. I mean, like we were talking about the other day, going to movies. I mean, I'm not going to take a date to a movie now, unless it's like a matinee.
Exactly.
And you sneak in candy and a little flask of whiskey, and you go sit down, and you turn that $100 date into a $50 date, which is still.
Well, I mean, wait a minute, but it's always it's a dinner and a movie date. So you're gonna. So
we'll see. Then I'm going to take her back to my place. I'm going to make a salad that cost me $10 at the store, and she's going to be happy with it. Yeah.
It's funny. I was talking to an ex. Somehow we got into contact. And I told her the reason I got married was because, women love to be wined and dined, right?
Uh-huh.
Have you seen what a cheese wheel and a good bottle of wine costs? I mean, it is so expensive.
You got to take out a loan for that stuff.
Yeah, I got to take a loan. And it's okay if the girl weighs 120, 130 pounds.
Oh, yeah. You get a half a glass in her, and she's good.
She's good. And, she'll nibble on a little cheese so you can have left over for the next girl.
Oh, yeah.
But, But try finding those girls. You get a lot of women that are 150 pounders. That's a lot of cheese.
That's not.
And so it got cheaper to. This is a joke, folks. This is a joke. This is absolutely a joke.
Yeah.
And I'm.
Well, that's not a joke. There are plenty of 150-pound women out there that are looking on, on JDate or wherever they are, and farmers only. I think that's probably where the majority of them are, farmers only. Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of wine and cheese, man.
That can pull that plow for you.
Well, I'm telling you, that's a lot of wine and cheese. So,
yeah. They got to keep up their energy for that next day out in the field and pulling the cart.
I think you have a sense of where Dean comes from. He comes from. Anyway, that's a joke. That's all a joke, folks.
It's not a joke. It's not a joke.
But the point is this. It's getting too expensive. We don't have the money. You're going to have to take a look at alternative ways of financing stuff. And one of them is going to have to be, as it is with film, they're looking at blockchain. More and more movies are now being financed with blockchain. You're going to have to probably look at it the same thing is going to have to be looked at for colleges.
Yeah.
And Sunil made a very good point, Sunil Bardwash from Global Talent, that a lot of because he mostly deals with foreign athletes. And, a promising young athlete may want to put out a cryptocurrency or put out a blockchain.
Tokenize
an
himself.
ICO. Yeah, tokenize himself in order to be able to fund his...
Yeah, it's not quite an ICO. If you're tokenizing, ICO is a totally different thing. But if you're just tokenizing yourself without an ICO, you're not launching it. You're not trying to raise money. You're just... But we're still having to deal with the SEC and crap like that. So... Yeah. There's ways around the ICO type thing, just straight to tokenizing.
Well, and again, I'm asking people to consider in positions at the universities to at least consider a blockchain transaction.
Oh, they're going to have to. They're absolutely going to have to. I mean, there's nothing else that's coming around the corner in this day and age that can move people to that next tax bracket and start benefiting so many industries across the board right away. It just does.
Yeah.
You're not going to see this again.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons we brought this. I wanted to bring this podcast up, and I've been threatening to do this one for a long time, and it just took me a while to just get my head around it, to understand, at least for my sake, the scope of the problem, and how I think that what we're doing here at least is promoting, or not promoting, but basically at least getting people to think about the blockchain transactions as a way of changing things around. Again, it's decentralization. It's a way, we always emphasize the need for decentralization. And blockchain does that. What we're looking at with college sports is a centralized authority that probably oversees all of this. And it's not working. If, like I said, at the end, probably half of your universities are going to be going bankrupt.
Yeah.
I totally agree with what Professor Patterson has to say. Yeah, they probably are going to be bankrupt because I can't see how things can go on as they are. And if that's the case, you might, like I said before, you have no alternative but to go do this. Anyway, Dean, I really thank you for having me on.
This has been good. Been a great education for, I'm sure, a lot of people, ironically enough.
Yeah.
Absolutely make sure that we tell your friends, tell your neighbors, have them come on down to the let me get that back up here. Okay, the North American Sports and Blockchain Conference. Now 4th, 5th, and 6th. Oh man, I got a typo on there. 4th, 5th, and 68th. The 4th, 5th, and 68th of February. I'll have to fix that later. Good catch. February 2019, the JW Marriott. Hopefully, that's still going to be the location. And LA Live, downtown LA. Charlie, you're going to be there, aren't you?
Yeah, if you let me in. There's always that question.
You know,
and the reason I ask that is because,
we're not giving away any freebies, man. You still got to pay your way at the door.
Jeez, my God. Holy cow, man!
I might hand you a bottle of water here and there,
that's what's so wonderful.
Which is going to be more than you get at most conferences anyway. So.
Yeah, that's what's so wonderful about you. You're just all heart,
I am. I'm a giver.
Yeah.
What can I say?
Well, okay. Well, folks, give us a like and a subscribe to our channel.
Absolutely, like and subscribe. Yes.
And give us a comment if you agree, disagree, violently disagree, or
with
violently
Charlie's
love
hat?
us. Yeah. And love my hat, baby. I got to keep my head warm. It's getting a little colder here.
Yeah, because you're thinning out on the top there. I can see how you would need an extra layer.
Oh yeah.
On your dome. Yeah.
The funny thing is, my hair's leaving my head, but I'm finding it all over my back.
On your back, coming out your ears, growing out of your nose. Yep.
That's right.
Your forearms don't look too polished there either. So.
No, they're not. Oh yeah. It's like all of a sudden at some age I became Sasquatch. But the thing is, But the thing is, my hair has moved from the inner city of my head to the suburbs of my back.
Oh, so, yeah. What kind of freaking cool joke is that, man?
That's why. You see, that's why I don't take off my shirt up here in the Northwest, because people will think I'm Sasquatch and take a shot at me. So it's like,
yeah, I don't understand it. Like I'm getting more hair on the little nubby of my ears than I am on the back of my head.
That's right.
It's so discouraging and humiliating.
It is. But if blockchain can figure that out,
yes. The Blockchain for Men Hair Club.
Yeah. All right, buddy. I'll let you go.
All right, man. Good talk.
Good talk. Hey, thanks everybody for listening to us.
Yes. Thank you. All right. See you, man.